comfortable with this kind of ice because it is straightforward and simple. It tells us that we have 0.250 moles of this with 0.2 moles of this. Nothing else is mentioned before the word react, so that means it's 0. So minus 2x plus x plus 2x means at equilibrium we've got 0.250 minus 2x, 0.20, and that's not a plus, Ms. Matney, that's a minus. Don't know what you're thinking. Minus x, let's fix that. 0.2 moles minus x, and this is 2x. Now, there is no squiggly in KCKP, and that's the one issue that students tend to have when we're doing the KSP stuff, and then all of a sudden I make you go back and do KCKP. You want to do a squiggly. Well, let me just say up front, we can squiggly with KSP, KAs, and KBs, but we can never ever squiggly with KCKP, and the reason why is because a KC or KP can be a large value or a small value. KSP will always be small values. We've not seen anything but small values, and that's why we're allowed to squiggly with the KSP, but with KCKP, you're never allowed to squiggly. So notice I'm going to leave all that in place, but I'm then going to read that piece of information which tells me that 2x is 0.162 moles, yes? It is, which means that x is 0.081 moles, yes? So, up here, if I were to write the Kc expression of SO3 squared over SO2 squared, also over O2 raised to the first at equilibrium, what I'm going to end up plugging in is going to look like this. 0.162 moles over 10 liters squared. Why do I have to put it over volume? Because it's molarity. That's what brackets mean. They mean molarity, yes? So I must plug in my volume. Down here, I'm going to plug in 0.250 minus 0.162 over 10. And that's moles, and that's going to get squared. And then down here, I'm going to also put 0.2 minus 0.081 moles over 10 to the first. And when I do all that math, I get 285 for my Kc. So the Kc for this reaction is 285 when I do all that math. Now, Michael, tell me one thing that that kind of Kc value says to you. Product favor, okay? Nyreek, what else does it say? It means that it's TPF. Brianna, what else does it say to you? Thank you. And when I go from an SO2 to an SO3, oxidation numbers are changing. Because SO2 and SO3 are going to give me different oxidation numbers for S's. Since oxygen is a fixed oxidation number, all right? And Abby, what else does that mean? Positive E cell would mean what? Negative delta G. Negative delta G. And the fact that Kc is larger than 1 tells me that the products are bigger than the reactants. Because that's what Kc is products over reactants, yes? Yes. All right, quick question. Are the Kp and the Kc hated the same values? Okay, no. So Kp is not going to be equal to Kc because the number of moles of gas on the product side minus the number of moles of gas on the reactant side is not 0. It's going to be -1 because it's going to be 2 minus 3. That's going to be -1, which means I can predict the sign of the delta S for this reaction. I can predict the sign of the delta S for this reaction. Austin, what is it? If delta NG is -1, what's the sign of delta S? Negative. Negative. I'm going from 3 moles of gas to 2 moles of gas. I'm going from more chaos to less chaos. Therefore, delta S is negative. So now I have another question. If I have a negative delta G, Kyle, and a negative delta S, I've got this equation in the back of my mind called Big Daddy. It says this, delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S. If this is negative, which it is, 3 moles going to 2 moles, negative delta S, and I have a negative delta G, what is the only possible sign that I can have for delta H to give me a negative delta G with a negative delta S? Yes. The only sign possible, they love to ask that question because that's deep. They love to ask that question because that's deep. If I know my Big Daddy equation and I have a negative delta S, that does not encourage a negative delta G, right? Becoming less disordered is not natural. Your room does not become less disordered over time, naturally on its own, right? Right? My kitchen doesn't become ordered naturally over time. It becomes disordered naturally over time, yes? Okay? So if delta S is not encouraging natural, spontaneous, then I have to have the delta H encouraging spontaneous. So the only sign delta H can have, according to that Big Daddy equation, for this to be negative, if that's negative, the only possibility is a negative delta H, yes? And that means what? What does a negative delta H mean? A negative delta H means what?
Wait, a negative delta what?
H.
H. Because that there's going to be a lot of change, a lot of disorder.
Thank you, Jordan. It means exothermic reaction. Exothermic and less disorder. Okay. Whew. Thank you, Jordan. All right, so this negative and that negative are giving me a negative delta G. So that means that my temperature must be, negative, my temperature must be low enough that I actually have that T delta S has been superseded by my negative delta H. Okay? So how low? How low is low? When I say I need a low temperature, how low? This is all review. How low? What is the thing in the thing?
H divided by S.
Right, delta H divided by delta S. That gives me a temperature at which delta G is. But delta H divided by delta S will give me a delta G that is 0. 0. And when delta G is 0, what's K? Thank you, it's 1. Have we ever encountered a K being 1? Because we never encounter a delta G being what? 0. Delta G being 0 means the reaction's stuck in between being TPF and not TPF. And the only time that's natural is for phase changes at their normal temperatures. Okay. So when we say we need a low temperature, we need a temperature lower than the delta H divided by the delta S value. Whatever temperature that comes out to be, we need a temperature lower than that. All right, that's like review. I don't think I need to remind you, today's the 23rd of February. March 23rd, April 23rd, and we will be in big time review mode because May 2nd or 3rd, the 3rd is right around the corner. That's our exam day. But now, yeah, you need to start registering. Right now.
Is that why you can have ice or water at 0 degrees Celsius?
Yes.
Or water or
Yes. Yes.
So you
That's what?
we don't have any other tests.
I never said that.
We do.
I never said that. Yes.